She gave me an ultimatum, but I recorded her affair. Here's what happened next. It was a seemingly ordinary Tuesday evening when I stumbled upon the truth that would shatter my world. I had just returned home from a long day at the office, exhausted but ready to enjoy a quiet night with my wife, Laura. As I stepped into our spacious home, a place that once felt like a sanctuary, I sensed something was off. The air was thick with tension, and the faint sound of hushed whispers drifted from the living room. I walked down the hallway, my heart racing as I pushed the door open. What I found was nothing short of a nightmare. There, on our couch, was Laura, her phone pressed to her ear, a seductive smile plastered across her face. My stomach twisted as I caught snippets of her conversation, her laughter, the way she bit her lip in that oh-so-familiar way when she was excited. But it wasn't just any conversation. She was speaking to Daniel Parker, the wealthy real estate mogul who had been a constant fixture in her professional life. "Daniel, you know I can't resist you," she purred, her voice sultry and low. "Tonight, I'll tell him I have to work late. Just give me an hour, or two." Every word was like a dagger, piercing through my heart. I stood frozen in the doorway, disbelief washing over me like a cold wave. My mind raced as the reality of her betrayal sank in. The woman I loved, the one I had built a life with, was not only cheating on me but planning to meet another man right under my nose. I couldn't just stand there and watch. Adrenaline surged through my veins as I grabbed my phone, instinctively hitting record. I knew I had to capture this moment, to hold on to some semblance of truth amidst the chaos. Suddenly, Laura turned, her eyes wide with shock as she caught sight of me. "Jack, she stammered, scrambling to hide her phone behind her back. The color drained from her face as the reality of her actions hit her like a ton of bricks. "What the hell is going on here, Laura?" I demanded, my voice steady but filled with a fury I could barely contain. "Who were you talking to?" "Nothing. I wasn't doing anything wrong," she protested, but the quiver in her voice betrayed her. I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to concoct a believable lie, but I wasn't buying it. I'd seen enough in her eyes to know the truth. "Don't lie to me," I shot back, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. "I heard you, Laura. You're cheating on me with Daniel Parker?" Her silence spoke volumes. In that moment, I could feel the ground beneath me shifting, threatening to swallow me whole. "You think I'm some kind of fool?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. "You're the one who's made a fool of yourself." A flash of anger crossed her face, quickly replaced by an icy calmness. "You don't understand," she said, her tone cold. "I can't be with someone like you anymore. You're just not enough for me." The words struck me like a slap across the face. I felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, betrayal, sadness, colliding within me. But I couldn't let her see how much she had hurt me. I had to stay strong. "And what happens now, Laura? You think you can just run off with him and leave me here?" Her lips curled into a smirk, a facade of confidence masking the panic in her eyes. "You have a choice to make, Jack. Either you stay quiet about this, or I'll leave you for Daniel. You'll be alone, and I'll be living the life I've always wanted." The audacity of her ultimatum left me speechless. How could she put me in this position? It was as if she had completely lost touch with reality. But instead of crumbling under her pressure, a new fire ignited within me. I would not be the one to back down. I stood my ground, processing the storm brewing inside me. "You really think you can manipulate me into silence? You'll regret this, Laura." "Regret?" she scoffed. "You think you have any power here? Just remember, I can make your life a living hell if I want to." Those words echoed in my mind as she stormed off to the bedroom, leaving me alone in the living room. But I was done playing the victim. I was going to take control of this situation and turn the tables. After that confrontation, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I spent the night awake, replaying the entire scene in my head, determined to devise a plan that would ensure Laura's deceit didn't just go unpunished. As the sun rose the next morning, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I wasn't just going to let her walk away unscathed. I had a plan. I would gather the evidence I needed, expose her for the liar she was, and make sure that her precious affair with Daniel Parker was publicly known. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity, my life. With every second that passed, I grew more resolute. I would show Laura and her wealthy lover that I was not a man to be trifled with. Days dragged on in a suffocating haze, each one filled with tension and deceit. Laura pretended everything was normal, flitting around the house as if nothing had happened, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She was desperate to keep her affair with Daniel under wraps, but I was determined to expose the truth. I spent my evenings plotting my next move, meticulously reviewing the recordings I had made. The more I listened to her manipulative words, the angrier I became. Each time her voice echoed in my mind, I felt the need to act grow stronger. I'd spent years supporting her dreams, sacrificing my own ambitions, only to have her betray me in such a flagrant manner. I was done playing the victim. It was time to reclaim my life. But just as I was preparing to finalize my plans, the first twist of fate hit me like a freight train. It was a Friday evening, and I had just returned home from work, eager to execute the next phase of my revenge. Instead, I found Laura sitting at our dining room table, a look of panic etched across her face. "Jack, we need to talk," she said, her voice shaky, devoid of its usual confidence. "What about?" I replied, feigning indifference, even though my heart raced at the thought of her potentially spilling secrets. "It's Daniel," she blurted out, tears welling in her eyes. "He's in trouble." A knot tightened in my stomach. "What do you mean he's in trouble?" "He got into some serious legal issues, fraud, embezzlement. The police are investigating him. They think he's been involved in something bigger." I felt a surge of satisfaction but quickly masked it with concern. "And what does that have to do with us?" "Jack, if this investigation goes public, it'll ruin everything. I need you to promise me you won't say anything. If the media finds out I'm involved with him, I'll lose my job and everything I've worked for." Her eyes bore into mine, a mix of fear and desperation. A part of me reveled in the chaos unraveling around her. She had orchestrated her own downfall, and I was standing right in the middle of it, ready to pull the strings. But instead of showing her sympathy, I leaned in, feigning concern. "Laura, you made your bed. You can't expect me to just ignore your affair because things are getting complicated for you." She shifted uncomfortably, clearly panicking. "I'll do anything, Jack. Just please don't blow this up. I know I messed up, but I can fix things. We can work together. Just promise me you'll stay quiet." Her words hung heavy in the air, and the tension in the room thickened. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, weighing her options. The moment of power I had dreamed of was within my grasp, and the old Jack, the one who would have easily caved in, was nowhere to be found. "Laura," I said, leaning back with a smirk that I could no longer suppress. "You think I'm going to just let this slide? After everything you've put me through? I've got evidence of your little affair, and if I wanted to, I could make your life a living hell." Her expression morphed from fear to rage in an instant. "You wouldn't dare. If you go public, it'll destroy both of us. You'll lose your job too, Jack. You're being stupid." Her anger only fueled my resolve. "You're right, it could blow back on me, but it could also destroy you and Daniel, and I've got all the proof I need." Suddenly, I noticed a flicker of realization cross her face, and I knew I had her right where I wanted her. Her panic shifted to something more calculating. "You're playing a dangerous game," she warned, her voice low. "You don't know what he's capable of." I smirked, not intimidated by her veiled threats. "Neither do you, but I'm willing to find out." With that, I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of empowerment. The tables had turned, and now it was my time to play. The moment I had recorded her words had shifted the power dynamics in our relationship. She was no longer the one holding the strings. I was. After our heated exchange, Laura retreated into silence, her wheels turning as she contemplated her next move. But I was resolute. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me any longer. The tension simmered between us as I plotted my revenge while she scrambled to regain control of her life. But the twist didn't stop there. The following day, while doing some research on Daniel's business dealings to gather more evidence, I stumbled across something shocking. A report surfaced online regarding a scandal involving Daniel Parker, a link to an offshore account that was allegedly tied to drug trafficking. I felt my pulse quicken. This was bigger than I had anticipated. The implications of this information could not only destroy Daniel's life but Laura's too. I couldn't believe my luck. It was as if fate was handing me the perfect ammunition. I had never expected to find something so explosive, so I began to devise a plan to leverage this information. The thrill of revenge ignited my every thought. With this newfound power, I knew I could expose both Laura and Daniel in one fell swoop, ensuring their affair became the center of a scandal that would engulf them both. As the sun set that evening, I sat in my home office, surrounded by files and notes, each piece bringing me closer to my ultimate goal. I would not only expose Laura's affair but ensure it ruined her relationship with Daniel forever. I was ready to play my hand, and nothing was going to stop me. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across my cluttered desk, a sense of determination surged within me. I had gathered enough evidence to ensure that Laura's affair would become a public scandal, but I needed to strategize carefully. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my life and dignity after everything Laura had put me through. I would expose her deception and Daniel's corruption, and I would do it on my terms. The blueprint for revenge. The first step in my plan involved ensuring I had all my ducks in a row. I needed to compile a solid case against Laura and Daniel, so I spent hours organizing the recordings of our conversations and screenshots of Daniel's questionable financial activities. My computer screen glowed with evidence that painted a damning picture, one that would not only ruin Laura's career but also tarnish Daniel's reputation forever. I reached out to a couple of old college friends who now worked as journalists at a local news outlet. I'd always been careful to keep my relationships professional, but I knew I could trust them. It didn't hurt that they had a knack for sensational stories. Over a few beers, I laid out my story, careful to hold back the more explosive details until I was certain they were hooked. "I've got a story that could break the internet," I said with a grin, watching their eyes widen with interest. "Give us the details," one of them said, clearly intrigued. I explained how Laura, a rising star in real estate, was involved in a scandalous affair with Daniel Parker, a man embroiled in serious legal troubles. I dropped hints about his connections to illegal activities, ensuring they knew there was more beneath the surface. The journalists were eager for the juicy bits, and I let them know I had the evidence to back it up. With each word, my plan solidified. After we parted ways, I returned home, my heart racing with adrenaline. I felt like a puppet master, pulling the strings of my revenge with precision. But I also knew I had to play my cards carefully. Laura was not one to be underestimated. She would likely react unpredictably. If she sensed anything amiss, she might flee or turn the tables on me. Preparing for the confrontation. As I finalized my evidence, I needed to confront Laura one last time before executing my plan. I wanted to give her a chance to come clean, to admit her infidelity, and to see if she would try to negotiate. Maybe I was holding on to a shred of hope that she'd realize the error of her ways. I set the stage for our confrontation, a simple dinner at home, just the two of us. That evening, I prepared a simple meal of pasta, something that had once been a favorite of hers. I set the table with a bottle of wine, trying to create an atmosphere that felt normal, despite the storm brewing beneath the surface. I wanted her to feel comfortable, to let her guard down. When Laura walked in, she wore a dazzling smile, blissfully unaware of the trap I had laid. "Hey, Jack, what's all this?" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Just a little dinner to talk," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual while my heart raced. I poured her a glass of wine and gestured for her to sit. "Wow, you're being sweet. What's the occasion?" she asked, sipping the wine, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. I took a deep breath, mentally preparing myself for the confrontation. "Laura, we need to talk about your affair with Daniel," I said, my voice steady. Her expression changed instantly. The playful smile vanished, replaced by a mask of concern. "Jack, I told you." "Let me finish," I interrupted, my patience wearing thin. "I know everything, and I'm willing to give you a chance to explain yourself before I take this further." "Further? What do you mean?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "I mean I could expose you and Daniel. I could make sure everyone knows what you've been doing behind my back. Do you really think your career can survive that? Or your precious relationship with him?" Laura's expression shifted to a mix of anger and desperation. "You wouldn't dare. You're bluffing." "Am I?" I challenged, pulling out my phone. "I have everything I need right here." The ultimatum reversed. For a moment, her bravado faltered, and I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. "Jack, please. I didn't mean for this to happen," she began, her voice trembling. "I was just so caught up in everything. Daniel is so successful, and I thought." "Thought what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "That you could have it all? You think you can manipulate me into silence while you play house with him?" The tension escalated as her panic turned into anger. "You're being selfish. I've worked hard to get where I am. I thought you'd understand." "Understand? You think I'd understand being cheated on? You've made your choices, Laura. This isn't about me, it's about you trying to escape the consequences of your actions. You had your chance to come clean." The conversation escalated, and in that moment, I saw the cracks in her confidence. The mask of control she wore slipped, revealing a woman who was terrified of losing everything. I realized that this was the turning point in our relationship. Laura had underestimated my resolve, and now she was at my mercy. "I'll do anything," she pleaded, her voice desperate. "Just don't expose me. I'll fix things. I'll end it with Daniel." It was my moment to shine, to relish in her desperation. "You think it's that easy? You think you can just walk away from this?" "No, Laura. I've made my decision." I rose from the table, leaving her staring in disbelief, her entire world hanging in the balance. "You will face the consequences of your actions, and I'll make sure everyone knows what you've done. This is your fault, not mine." As I walked away, I felt a surge of empowerment. The revenge I had carefully plotted was unfolding perfectly, and I was one step closer to bringing Laura's facade crashing down. Little did I know that the climax of this drama would be even more explosive than I had anticipated. The air was thick with anticipation as I watched the chaos of my plan begin to unfold. It was a beautiful, sunny Saturday morning, and I had spent the previous night fine-tuning every detail, ensuring that the evidence I collected would not only ruin Laura but also shatter Daniel's carefully curated image. It was time for the world to see them for who they really were. Setting the stage for public exposure, I had arranged for my friends from the news outlet to be present at a real estate open house hosted by Laura. It was a perfect venue, filled with potential buyers, influential local figures, and, of course, her precious Daniel. I knew Laura would be on her best behavior, determined to impress everyone and hide her affair. But this was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment where my meticulously laid plans would come to fruition. The morning of the event, I felt a mix of nerves and excitement. I dressed sharply, choosing my best suit as a symbol of my readiness to take control of my life again. I made my way to the open house, arriving just as guests began to trickle in. Laura was in her element, charming guests and showcasing her latest listings with that same dazzling smile she had once reserved just for me. I stood back, observing her as she mingled effortless with her colleagues and clients. The contrast between the woman I once loved and the one I now loathed was striking. She was so wrapped up in her facade, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing just behind her. The big reveal. As the crowd grew, I took a moment to gather my composure and contact my friends. "It's time," I texted, my heart racing with anticipation. A few moments later, I saw them enter the venue. They blended seamlessly into the crowd, and I could feel the tension mounting. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please," I heard one of my friends call out. The crowd gradually quieted, turning their attention toward him. My heart raced as I approached the center of the room, standing beside my friend, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. "I have an important announcement regarding Laura's real estate business," he continued, the glint of excitement in his eyes. "And I believe it's only fair that you all hear the truth." Laura's expression shifted from confusion to horror as she realized something was amiss. I could see her heart rate spike as she moved closer, a mix of fear and denial dancing in her eyes. "Jack, what are you doing?" she hissed, panic evident in her voice. "Laura, everyone here deserves to know who they are really dealing with," I replied, my voice steady and clear. "You've built your career on deception, and it's time the truth comes to light." With that, I handed my friend the phone, where I had meticulously edited video clips of Laura discussing her affair with Daniel, her calls for silence, and her manipulative tactics. As the footage began to play on the large screen at the front of the room, gasps echoed through the crowd. Public outrage. The reactions were instantaneous and visceral. Whispers of shock filled the air as her colleagues and clients processed the betrayal. I watched as Laura's carefully crafted smile crumbled, replaced by an expression of utter disbelief. The very people who had once praised her talent and charm were now turning their backs, their faces a mix of disgust and betrayal. "Is this true, Laura?" one of her colleagues shouted, betrayal thick in her voice. "How could you do this?" As the videos continued to roll, showcasing Laura and Daniel's conversations, I could feel the weight of the moment hanging in the air. Each revelation struck like a hammer, shattering the fragile reality Laura had built. Her world was collapsing before her very eyes. "Jack, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "You don't have to do this. I'm not the one who made this choice, Laura," I replied, feeling a surge of vindication. "You did this to yourself. You wanted to play games, now everyone knows you can't win." Daniel appeared, trying to maintain his composure, but the moment he recognized the gravity of the situation, his expression shifted from arrogance to desperation. He realized his own reputation was now on the line. "This is all lies," he shouted, but the crowd wasn't buying it. The video didn't lie. The fallout. As Laura's world crumbled, the crowd began to disperse, leaving behind a stunned silence punctuated only by murmurs of disbelief. I felt a mixture of triumph and sadness wash over me. I had taken back my power, but at what cost? The woman I once loved was now a mere shadow of her former self, standing there broken amidst the rubble of her own making. "Jack," Laura began, but I cut her off. "No more excuses, Laura. You made your choices. You wanted the luxury and the excitement, but you forgot the most important part: loyalty. You didn't just cheat on me, you betrayed everyone who believed in you." As I walked away, I could hear the whispers behind me, the judgment raining down on her. I felt lighter, liberated from the burden of her deceit, but there was a part of me that mourned what we had lost. I stepped outside, the sun shining brightly, and took a deep breath. I had faced my demons, taken control of my narrative, and emerged victorious. But the victory felt hollow. I had finally unleashed my revenge, but the emotional toll lingered. As I walked away from the open house, the adrenaline of my revenge began to wane, replaced by an unsettling emptiness. I had exposed Laura for who she truly was, but with that victory came the burden of the fallout. I found myself grappling with a mix of emotions, triumph, sadness, and a sense of loss that lingered like a shadow. The dust settles. The next few days were a whirlwind of reactions. Laura's colleagues reached out to me, their faces a mix of anger and sympathy. "I can't believe she would do that," one of them said, shaking her head. "You deserve better, Jack." The support was comforting, but it felt strange to be at the center of such a scandal, even when it was fueled by truth. Meanwhile, the local news stations were all over the story. Headlines blared about Laura's betrayal, her career hanging by a thread as sponsors pulled away, and listings dried up. I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. After all, she had been my wife, the mother of my children. Yet, that guilt was quickly overshadowed by the satisfaction of knowing she was facing the consequences of her actions. The conversation with Daniel. I didn't expect Daniel to contact me, but the day after the scandal broke, he called. "Jack, we need to talk," he said, his voice tense. "This isn't just about you and Laura anymore." I let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, I'm pretty sure it's still about you too. You made your choices, Daniel. This is on you." "I know, but you have to understand, I didn't know she was married at first." "She made it sound like you were the problem," he admitted, desperation tinged with a hint of regret in his voice. "I thought I was helping her escape." "Helping her escape? More like helping her destroy lives. Did you think I'd just roll over while you played house with my wife? I'm not proud of what happened, Jack, but can't we work this out? You and Laura could still what?" I interrupted, my anger boiling to the surface. "Fix this. You want to be friends? You took my life, my family, and you expect me to forgive you? Forget it, Daniel." We hung up, leaving a cold silence in the air. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I had stood my ground, and I wouldn't let either of them manipulate me again. The truth was out, and I would no longer be the victim in this twisted game. Facing Laura again. A week later, Laura reached out, requesting to meet. The thought of facing her again was daunting, but I was determined to end this chapter once and for all. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop, a neutral ground where the weight of our shared past hung heavily between us. When I walked in, I found her sitting at a table, looking vulnerable and lost, a stark contrast to the confident woman I had once known. The elegant dress she wore felt out of place, a reminder of the life she had tried to maintain. "Jack," she began, her voice trembling, "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." "Then why did you let it happen?" I shot back, my heart hardening. "You had everything, our life, our kids, and you threw it all away for what? Some fleeting excitement?" "Daniel was a mistake, and I see that now," she replied, her eyes pleading for understanding. "But it wasn't just about him. I was unhappy, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought maybe you'd just go along with it. So you wanted me to be quiet, to allow you to live this double life while I stood idly by?" I asked incredulously. "You wanted me to be your doormat?" "No, I wanted you to understand. I wanted to find a way back to us, but I was too afraid to admit how far I had fallen," she admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "I've lost everything, Jack. I don't want to lose you completely." The decision. As she spoke, a part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her that things could change, that we could somehow move past this. But another part of me, the part that had fought so hard to reclaim my life, screamed for me to stay strong. "I can't, Laura. I can't be part of this twisted game anymore. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. I'm filing for divorce, and there's no going back," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Her face fell, and I could see the realization of my words settling in. "You don't mean that," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I do," I replied, feeling a mix of sadness and relief wash over me. "I deserve better than this. We both do." Laura reached out, her hand trembling as she tried to connect with me one last time. "Jack, please. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance." But I pulled back, shaking my head. "You've had your chances, Laura. I need to focus on rebuilding my life and being there for our kids. You've chosen your path, and now it's time for me to choose mine." With that, I stood up and walked away, leaving the past behind. The road ahead would be tough, filled with obstacles and challenges, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer a victim, I was a survivor. Moving forward, as I stepped out into the sunlight, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I had faced my fears, reclaimed my power, and made a choice to prioritize my happiness and the well-being of my children. In the weeks that followed, I poured myself into work and family, working to build a new life without Laura. I enrolled in classes to further my career and spent quality time with my kids, helping them heal and understand the situation. I felt stronger, more in control than I had in years. Laura's affair may have shattered our marriage, but it had also ignited a fire within me, a determination to rise above the pain and embrace a brighter future. In the end, I learned that true freedom comes from letting go of the past and forging ahead, unburdened by the chains of betrayal. It was a hard-fought lesson, but it was one I would carry with me as I continued to build my life anew.